Hey folks, Kilt-Man here, Kilt-Man at your Earth Defending Services. How are you all? We're all doing very, very well. Now, what have I got for you today? Well, apart from the usual aches and pains, I'll just do a recap. I know regular viewers like to keep up with what's happening in the kilted realm. My mum, Big Kilt Mama, is still dead. Funeral is now arranged, all that's going to take place. So I will be doing the big tribute video to her very soon. I'll be honest, I've tried a couple of times to do a video. It hasn't really worked out. You can understand why. But my back is still out. In fact, the pain has now moved to the upper regions of my back. What goes on? I think what it is, because you're trying to combat the pain. Newcomers, I put my back out whilst moving furniture from my mum's house, which you had to get shut off to sell the place, which we have done. That was quick work, wasn't it? It's almost like we had it planned. No. And like being the big manly macho man that I am, kilt and vest, I was hoisting furniture 10 times the size of me and 40 times my weight. And obviously threw my back out in all my strenuous exertions and wrenched the lower back. Worst place on your back to throw out, and it's been agony now for, well, it'll be a week tomorrow. And what I found, it's moved. It moved to my hip, my right hip. It's affected my right leg and my right hand. It's the sciatic nerve, folks. Yeah, so you know it plays havoc with you. Hopefully it will be on the way out because I'm a lot more mobile. You know, I am. But what I've noticed in the last couple of days, I think because I'm sitting differently and I struggle to get out of a chair, you know. It depends how much whiskey I've been drinking, obviously. But it's now moved, it's migrated. I think because you overcompensate, it's now hit sort of, I have problems with my upper back anyway, because of a major accident I had. So that's always been like an injury I've known, and I can deal with that. I know how to get around it. But the problem is the way that you get around that is going to actually possibly send it travelling back down to the root cause. What do? I'll tell you what you do. You drinks your whiskey, that's what you does. And it kills the pain pronto. Cheers, y'all. So yeah, and kind of, again, it's all a bit of a limbo sort of thing. The last few videos I've done, I think I've mentioned spaghetti westerns played a huge part. My mum went, I wanted to just watch spaghetti westerns, and luckily that coincided with the TV show The English, which is a spaghetti western homage with Emily Blunt and Cheske Spencer, which I reviewed and loved. I think it's fantastic. And by the way, I was saying, oh, bring the soundtrack out. They have. It's available now. But sadly, it's mostly the songs that were featured in the TV show, not the actual score. I think it's about 20 minutes of score. What? Just 20 minutes? The score is lovely. Federico Usid, his score, it's absolutely breathtaking. And yet, it doesn't appear to be that much of it in, for what was it? 6 episodes, almost an hour long each. And music was in a lot of all that. And you only bring out 20 so minutes of actual score. Don't quite get it. But anyway, so spaghetti western mode was the way I got it. I was getting through the grief of my mother, which is bizarre enough in itself. But now I've segged into something else. Alien invasion movies. As you do. So I began to troll through all the shelves and that, what's he got? Oh, wincing in pain each time. Oh, sending one of my servants, can you do the top shelf there? No, not the nudie mags. The top shelf of the movies. Yes, that's the one. What's that? Yeah, no, I've seen that recently. Oh, no, that's crap. No. I'm going through a load of old alien invasion movies, and I stumbled across, from the title of this video, you know what I stumbled across. And it's The Man from Planet X. The DVD cover is there. There is actually a Blu-ray of this available. I have not got it. I really don't know if it's actually worth pursuing in that department for the extra resolution on what is a very old, very vintage, and not exactly the most dynamically filmed movies. And the reports I've heard, it's not particularly stellar. It's not much of an upgrade over the DVD. So yeah, the DVD is there. The Man from Planet X from 1951. Now, there's also another reason why I'm covering this one in particular right now. And that's because, bizarrely enough, this film got mentioned to me only in the last couple of weeks. Because, you know, when I go out bevying and I go on forums and that, it seems that a lot of people have been talking about, well, alien invasion movies or just alien movies. And whenever I'm around, especially when I'm out in the pub, oh, it's Kilt-Man. As well as being, that fantastic, egotistical, totally vain, pseudo-womanizing James Bond in a tartan, fake superhero that he thinks he is. He actually knows his movies. So we're going to sit and have a good chin-wag with him about movies. And people, a lot of older people, and I'm not exactly young myself now, but a lot of people I know who are older than me talk about the films that they grew up with when they were kids. And a film that got mentioned a couple of times was indeed, yes, you guessed it, The Man from Planet X. And I thought, I've got that. And I haven't seen it for a long, long time. In fact, watching it for this review, well, for the purposes of this review, it's almost like I'd seen it for the first time ever. I didn't remember most of it. I knew the titular character, the Man from Planet X. I knew the dreamy, surreal setting it takes place in. But the actual plot mechanics, I had not remembered at all. And The Man from Planet X, right, it's directed by Edgar G. Ulmer, who did The Black Cat with Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi, one of the greatest, the Bauhaus, pure homage. Wonderful, wonderful movie. And then he went on to, he did thrillers, and I think he might have done a couple of westerns as well. But he did things like The Hideous Sun Demon as well. And a lot of B-movie, fantasy, sci-fi, horror, sort of sleaze bags. And this is what someone said to me. He said, isn't that the first alien invasion movie that was ever put out? And I sat back, and I thought, and I went, yes, it could well be, because it came out in 1951, the same year as The Day the Earth Stood Still. Oh, Jesus, one of the greatest sci-fi movies of all time. The Day the Earth Stood Still, which I think they came out sort of the same time. But in that same year, you had The Thing from Another World. One of my all-time favourites. I've covered it a lot on the channel. But Man from Planet X was actually released in March of 51. The Thing from Another World played later that year. And then ones that always get mentioned are, George Powell's War of the Worlds and Invaders from Mars from William Cameron Menzies. But they were both 1953, so they both came out afterwards. And then the more I thought about it, I was going, yeah, I think it is. And then another little name popped into my head. Algol, which sounds like a toothpaste. Algol. Or it sounds like some kind of, you've got a bit of a bum crack infection there. You've got a bad case of the algols. And Algol is a 1920. That's 1920. Yeah, it's a long time ago. That is actually over 100 years ago. It was a German, obviously silent movie, and I haven't seen it. I just know of it. And what it is, it's a mining town, mining community, and an alien from the planet Algol arrives to basically just, well, here's our technology. We can help you mine better. If I've got this right, we can help you mine better, and everyone's happy. Yay! Very optimistic sort of thing. It's not really an invasion movie at all, but an alien has landed and said, look, we could better your world. It's wonderful. That's the kind of alien you want. I've just noticed the stepping stones of the heads here. Dunk, dunk, dunk. And then we get my devious little imp here, my protege, Mr. Kentucky Fudge, sitting down the other end. But he's looking up. He's forever is always looking up to something better, more hopeful. Maybe he's hoping for his home planet to come screening into view. That's a word, screening. Because that's the plot of this movie, a planet about to hit the Earth. But we'll come on to that in a bit. But Algol, I think, is the first actual, if you term an alien coming to this planet, that's the first one. Then I think there was a couple of movies which I've got the title The Message or Messenger in my head. Might be wrong about that. It was made and then remade, same title, Message or Messenger, and it's about Martians, but in both cases it's actually a dream, which kind of reminds you of Invaders from Mars again. You know, it's all a dream, and then when you wake up, it actually isn't. It's happening. It's really going to happen again. As I say, more on that later. But I think this movie, Ulmer's The Man from Planet X, I think is the first genuine case in Hollywood, in cinema, of an alien which actually comes to Earth on purpose with a scheme, a design. And we'll come on to that because, again, this is a strange film to address, and it's difficult to attack it in many ways because I like to go in depth on movies and talk about, the exact narrative, talk about the characters, talk about the director, talk about everything about it, and its subtext as well. This is a film which has so many ambiguities that it's kind of annoying. It's ultra low budget. It's filmed on the sets of Victor Fleming's Joan of Arc in Hollywood, even though it's set in Scotland. Scotland, believe it or not. Oh, aye. Nah, it's a wee bit of Scotland for you there. And by the way, if that ever wants to invade Earth, I'll help you out, love. Aye. Set in Scotland, filmed on the old sets of Joan of Arc and Fogbound, because this film has an absolutely minimal budget. 14 bucks and they made this movie. But it was successful because it was different. Now you've got to look at the time. Now, I don't know if the DDS still came out before or just after or at the same time as this, but it doesn't matter. The film, The Man from Planet X, was a big success, and it regained success on absolutely gazillions of TV broadcasts in the 60s and 70s. A lot of what they call monster kids. These are people who are universal horror champions, and love 60s and 70s and just monster movies and creature features. And these guys are now in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and but they still term themselves as monster kids. And a lot of them cite this movie as being a really pivotal moment when they were 5 or 6 years old, watching it every sort of weekend. It'd be broadcast, and it's so eerie, it's so frightening. The Man from Planet X itself, the actual man, X, we'll call him X, is so terrifying. So when I was a kid growing up, and this film was not playing at my local flea pits on re-release. I saw lots of vintage movies. I was lucky to have that ability or opportunity. But I had millions of sci-fi tomes, not novels, but books on sci-fi movies from the 60s, most of them throughout the 70s. And I'd always see pictures of this bloody X, the Man from Planet X. I'd see him menacing some lovely woman, and I'd be like, the typical, obviously that's the usual cliched image of some kind of alien beastie or whatever it is, something otherworldly, nasty, is threatening a woman. And for once it wasn't me. But I was like, that's just that strange, that. It's such a weird looking concept of this alien. So I was aware of this movie, and I'd see little tiny 1-paragraph synopsis of what this film was. And looking back on those, it's very, very clear to me that the people who wrote those books had not seen the film either. Especially having now watched it myself again, I'm reminding myself what it's all about. So, a lot of us, and I know a lot of you guys out there have these books as well. You've got to remember that these guys were doing research and we're getting these authors and we're getting other people's details. And especially during the 60s and 70s, they were getting the wrong information. And the amount of fake news, folks, fake news, that came out about this movie was just astounding. But anyway, The Man from Planet X. It's born out of Roswell. It's also born out of the big UFO flap of the late 40s and into the 50s over in America. So, and it's a kind of like, well, a reaction to that. But as I say, Ulmer directed it. It's written and produced by Jack, here's a weird name, Jack Pollexfan. Jack Pollexfan? And Aubrey Wisbone, I'm not too sure. I can't read my own writing. That's terrible, isn't it? Aubrey something or other. And they produced it and wrote it. And it's only a 70-minute movie. Even then, it does seem to drag, I'll be honest. How about it? Cheers. And it tells the story of a planet has entered our solar system. A new planet. And for want of a better name, they've given it the name Planet X. And it's actually heading towards Earth at quite some rate of knots. And we will meet a professor in California and a journalistic reporter, one of those guys, who has his slick back hair and he's got no chin. He's a chinless wonder. And he's one of those little rakish pencil moustaches. I'll say right now before I forget, in a later sequence, you'll see him in one of those khaki raincoats, with the big flappy collars on it, and you tie it round your waist as well. And with his hair and that little pencil moustache, he's an absolute dead ringer for Midge-Ure. That's Midge-Ure, lead singer from Scottish electro band from the 80s, Ultravox. He's a dead ringer. It's almost like Midge-Ure took that and went, I'm going to do that. But the thing is, that image was a lot of these roving reporters, these intrepid journos in like the 50s and 60s, sci-fi, fantasy, whatever movies, would have that look. A sort of like khaki trench coat thing, And I just, when he put it on, I went, it's Midge-Ure, I don't believe it. But and the film was set in Scotland, and Ultravox and Midge-Ure, Scottish. So I thought, yay! It's a nice little connection, but it's not particularly really authentic, I don't think. But anyway, so you've got Robert Clark plays that reporter, and he gets told about this Planet X speeding towards Earth, and this professor says to him, like, well, there's another professor out in, I can never quite get what they were saying. I think they're saying Barry Island. I know a load of Barry Islands, and there is one north of the border as well. And Professor Elliot, is it Elliot? Yeah, Professor Elliot, played by Raymond Bond. He's up there and he's studying this planet. But why is he there? Well, because when it gets closest to Earth, that little speck of Scotland, this moorland of Scotland, that's going to be right next to the planet. What? So hang on. Science. This is science fiction, folks. Emphasis on the fiction. The science, just put that word on the floor and just kick it under the carpet where no one can see it, because there ain't no science in this. But this planet's hurtling towards Earth, and they're studying this. It's going to cause cataclysms and all sorts, as you would expect. They get that bit right, at least. So I want you to go out there and speak to, Professor Elliot, because he knows everything about this planet. And he's like, well, thank you, Professor. Lots of professors in this. Thank you, Professor. That's just what I need. A good story. And hang on, is his daughter still there, Enid? Because apparently this Yankee journo has been there before. Why? I even just watched it the other night and I don't remember their relationship. But he gets over there and... yes, Enid, played by Margaret Field. who's not really one of your top-ranking sci-fi babes of the era, of which there are many. But Margaret Sheridan from The Thing with the World, oh my God, with those pneumatic... That's a good earth defense system she's got right there on her upper chassis. Dear God. I'd like to fine-tune those and make sure their aiming mechanism is just spot on. And no, I won't go any further than that. But he knows her from they were kids together. What were they doing being kids together? And he'll go out there to meet this Professor Elliot, and he'll meet her again. And he says in one of those really, really awful, terribly sexist chat-up lines. They're driving in the car and like everywhere. Obviously it's just cinema, film footage going past them. And he says like, yeah, when we were kids, you used to have big weird teeth and gangly legs. What? And you want to get into her knickers? Well, that's a good way to go. But he does retrieve himself somewhat. He goes like, let's see, the teeth are sorted out here, but can't tell about the legs yet. He doesn't say that bit, but you know what he's implying. And she's like, wearing a bit of tartan, a bit of plaid. She's wearing tartan. It's American style plaid. Because this is not filmed in Scotland, folks. It's filmed, as I say, on the sets of Victor Fleming's Joan of Arc. So it's just a backlot in Hollywood. That's all it is. And my God, its threadbare budget will come through. Jesus, this is like, it's like watching your kids do their little shows at school. Like the sets are wobbling, and they've got they're trying to make the effect of like bushes and a field and trees in the distance with little mocked up bits of cardboard and plywood painted set back like that to give the three-dimensional effect. This is what this film's got. Only it's not as convincing. It's not. It's terrible, in fact. But they obscure all this with the fog, this incessant fog, which is a good idea to obscure all the cost cutting that's taken place. And it does add an eerie sort of dreamlike quality to it, an almost fairy story style to it. And it also harkens back to the 1930s. But Universal were doing things far better then, even with the absolute vintage classics of Dracula and Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, and the Wolfman was 9 years before this, and even that was using a rather bad sort of back projection, and in one horrible, I love it, sequence when Larry Talbot, Lon Chaney Jr. is arriving back at the ancestral home in Wales. It's back in the UK again. Like all aliens and legends begin in the UK, the British Isles. They do. And but as they approach Mr. Larry, there's Talbot Manor, and he's like, right, yeah, there we go. And it's a really ridiculous, horrible painting with a bit of a miniature thrown in there, and you're like, oh no. But as I've always said, because it's just a one-off shot like that, it adds the fairy tale quality of the Wolfman, whereas the amount of shots of the moors and maybe a spectral light in the distance, which everyone else seems to love and remember, I thought looked really dreadful. I've got to be honest, it did not inform me in that respect. I understand people are going to go, oh, it's got this dreamy aspect to it, this surrealism, which it does have, but this kind of crazy setting, yeah, we know it's all fake. It's just a painting, and they've got mist blowing in front of it, and all that kind of stuff. But that's what it looks like. It doesn't transport me into this. I'm not spellbound by it. So anyway, he gets there, and what's his name again? Robert. His name's Robert Clark. Oh no, he's playing John Lawrence. Sorry, another Lawrence venturing into a mystical, enclave of the British Isles, laden with history and mystery going in cahoots. And so, look, I've got a big telescope here. And what I do love about this, though, is that, and this is the sets held over from Joan of Arc, they are living in an Iron Age. It's Iron Age. It's meant to be 300 years BC, I think, that these things were uncovered. but they call it like an Iron Age broch. Now a broch is a phallic tower, and Scotland, they're unique to Scotland. Scotland had what they reckon to be thousands of these dotted all around Scotland, and in the film they say, oh yeah, because it's just this, just like a big chimney or a lighthouse. A big, also reminds you of Frankenstein as well, with the big watchtower and all that, like where a lot of the experimentation takes place and creations and all that. So you've got that aspect going on, which does look great. I'll be honest, I do love that, a broch. But I'll tell you now, a broch was from 300 years BC. There were many, many more of them. In the film, what I think it might be Enid says to him, oh yeah, yes, he's like, oh, great place you've got here, the broch, you know. And she said, yes, well, you know, Scotland's got many of them. They were used as watchtowers to look out for the Vikings. No, they weren't. I can imagine the ones that were still standing in the era of the Viking raids, they probably would have been used for that, but that's not what they were built for. But anyway, but it's a nice gothic setting that they've got there. I do like that. And it is very Scottish, despite the accents that you hear of the apparently Scottish people. A lot of people say that, oh, it's just part of Western Scotland, but it's clearly an island, because he gets it when he arrives there. It's on a little fishing trawler, and don't think of Matt Hooper arriving in Amity. No, this is just again a painted backdrop of a little sort of curving cove of little cottages around the cliff. The sea that's not moving, and a tiny 4 foot by 4 foot jetty, and he gets up and climbs onto this, and all the extras come riding past on bikes or walking past, and it's nothing there. It's the exact size, ratio and scale of what you're looking at right now of me sitting here. That's what they've done. I know, I shouldn't be knocking it, and I don't mean to knock it for that, because I admire low budget creativity and making do what you've got and always coming up with something bigger and better. I mean, you've even got to look at the likes of the Evil Dead, you know, who had even less money than what these guys had to make this in comparative terms, and yet came out with revelations. And I always recognise it when it works, and in here it kind of does make the film feel very claustrophobic, very small, and very stage bound. It feels very theatrical. As I say, it's not normally a bad thing. You know, it can work, but in this case, it was making me go, oh, come on now. You could have done better than that. Cheers. So, this planet's hurtling towards him. Go on, John, have a look at that. What do you think? It's a planet hurtling towards us. Yes, and it's going to pass very close by, or even hit us within, like, I don't know, 2 days. I don't know what the fucking time that is. I can't remember. There's another guy involved in this, and that's Dr. Mears, played by Edward Shallett. Edward Shallett is, let me make sure I've got his name right. I've got it wrong. William Shallett. William Shallett was a very familiar face from TV in the 50s and 60s, and wasn't he Patty Duke's dad in whatever the Patty Duke show was. He was always a nice guy. He's not in this. And here's a really stupid thing about this script, right? So you've only just got to the broch, and you've just seen the planet again, moving through space. It's dizzy as hell. What's propelling it? It's not moon base alpha, is it? You know, under its own thrust. You know, it's not doing that. Because an explosion of moon base alpha in space 1999, it's the explosion has sent the moon off out of the orbit and into space, but it's still carrying on at the same speed. Well, what's blown this thing out? We don't know. It's Mystery Planet X, and but he's sitting talking to Enid, making tea. What is it about you Brits and tea? Oh, we just like the taste. Right, you know, me, I like whiskey. I like tea as well, but right now, whiskey's better. So, oh God, I'm not going to miss a cue like that, am I? But John Lawrence, the reporter, doesn't like this other guy, Dr. Mears, and he's like, you know, what's he doing here? shouldn't he be behind bars after what he did? And then Enid goes, well, I think he did serve some time actually. You know, he should have been locked up and throw away the key. Now Mia is just listening behind the door because he's been sent down to get this reporter to go up and see the Professor Elliot, Enid's dad. And everybody's heard all this. Now, you go, oh, he's naughty. Wow, what's he done? Folks, you're never going to find out. Real bad misstep of the story and the screenplay there. They don't tell us what he did. Was he a murderer? Was he a rapist? Was he a paedophile? What was he? What did he do? An embezzler? You know, why is your dad got him here after what he did? He should be behind bars. You're never going to find out. You don't get told what he did. You can't leave something like that to, make up your own minds. It's too big a thing. It's too big a deal. Especially with the events of what happens and what he does. Anyway, so look, I have not half procrastinated this one, haven't I? But I'm in pain. And this is a tonic for me. Just chattering away. So more sort of talk happens. I think they found a piece of space metal. Found it, and like that Dr. Mears says, this stuff's amazing. It's so strong. It's so light. You know, the man who owns the knowledge of constructing this and manufacturing it will control the world. Yeah, he's one of those guys. And although very, very low tier as a villain, he's pretty bad. But that's what we want. It's some kind of space age thing which they found. But Enid goes out. She's going home and she's cycling through the moors in the mist, and she will see like a light flashing across this painted backdrop. So she'll go and investigate, and she finds a crashed spaceship. Now, we're not talking a flying saucer here. It's not a flying saucer. It is a very curious looking, like the tip of a rocket, the probe, basically, but pointed, and it's conical and all that. If you want to talk about symmetry with the Brock itself, maybe there's some kind of, I don't know, elliptical sort of symmetrical sort of idea there. There isn't. It's just a little tin pot bloody spaceship, and it's on a jaunty angle, crashed in the mud. And as she's looking, there's windows in it as well. And as she looks at the window, yes, the man from Planet X makes an appearance. And she runs off in fear and then describes what we've just seen. No, it doesn't look like either of them. The man, he's got a hideous face, and the professors, they were like, Dad, tell me again about this face. You said it wasn't human. It was like, it had human attributes, but another bad thing about this script is that they over elaborate everything. says me, But this. Tell me what again. It wasn't right. It was almost like there was too much pressure on it. It was distorted and contorted and the face of the man from Planet X. This is something which gave nightmares to many of these monster kids I told you about, and was always a curious image in these sci-fi movie guides which I had. And I was like, I've got to see this movie. It looks so bizarre. It is bizarre. And he's little, right? And he's got a big goldfish bowl on his head. He's got an old TV strapped to his front. He's got a nozzle and hose connecting that to his helmet, and a little regulator on there. He's the most bizarre looking thing you've ever seen. His face itself is like something carved into a totem pole. It's so immobile. Little pointy nose, little just slits for eyes, little rectangular slits for eyes, and a little upset mouth. Very angular, pointed, very aquiline. That's giving a bit of kudos there, which it doesn't deserve. And oh my god, it looks like, see, other people on YouTube have got they show you a picture right now, they cut to a clip from the movie. I can't do that. I could show you the cover, but the ring light will glitch it out because of the cellophane on the front. the plastic cover. So I won't do that. But it looks like, remember in the original Star Trek, the original series, the Carbonite maneuver? Yeah. And you've got Baylock, played by Ted Cassidy, who's actually a puppet with his big head and that pointy nose and sort of like eyes. And who was the big bad guy in that, or rather little bad guy? It's none other than Ron Howard's brother, Clint Howard. He was actually controlling the whole thing in the Carbonite maneuver. But he looks, I'd say Gene Roddenberry and co for Star Trek actually harkened back to the image of this guy for their TV show. But it's a very strange face and it's completely immobile. If you watch it, none of you are going to watch it now, are you? Let's be honest. But let's carry on regardless. The lighting will change and the mist going past it give the impression that there's different expressions. The mouth does move. I've actually seen on forums people saying it's completely immobile. It's not. The mouth does move. He does move the mouth. And this guy is played by, Pat Golding. Now, for many, many years, this was a subject of controversy. No one knew who played. It's not listed in the credits. No one knew who played X. And other names, Billy Barty, who was in the likes of Legend, and was he in Wizard of Oz as well? Because he's a small guy, so this person of diminutive stature is playing this, and a few of the names were tossed into the ring, but paperwork was found, in the vaults of Hollywood, and it's Pat Golding playing him. And Pat Golding did go on to do many more, a lot of TV shows and stuff. And I think he was a vaudeville sort of performer in circuses and carnivals. But anyway, so he's the man from Planet X. So she recounts all this. So the professor and John, the reporter, go out there. Obviously, you got the nasty Dr. Mears. He's like, we found this thing. He must be the guy. They make that assumption straight away that we've got this planet zooming towards us, so he's got to be from that. Do you think it could be? Planet's out there, how come he's here? Off they go into the moors, and they will find this spaceship, because Enid wasn't lying, and suddenly they get hit by a little hatch opens, and a ray hits them both in the eyes, but it gets the Professor good style, who becomes zombified, and gotta get you back, gotta get you, this is wrong, gotta get you back. Are you all right, Professor? Are you okay? Gets him back to the Brock, and he finally, what happened to you? And he says, I don't know, I was aware of everything, but I was not in control. I was being told what to do. Well, they didn't do anything apart from walk back to the Brock. So they're going to go back again, aren't they? They're bound to. And they're going to encounter this guy, the one that Enid saw. And he comes out of this bloody ship, and he pulls out what looks like a little tiny ray gun, and he points it at them. And these two dorks, they're like, he's only little. You fucking just kick him right in the faceplate, and you do something. Get him now on the count of 3. Hang on, do we go on 3 or we go 1, 2, 3 and then go? And this thing's advancing on them. So they put their hands in the air like that. This is the universal sign of surrender. Oh, do you know that? That could be in their galaxy where that planet's come from. That could be the sign of war now, or hey, I want your ass. This is the universal sign for surrender. And the guy X suddenly then goes. His nozzle seems to go wrong. This is a weird thing again, because he then collapses because he can't breathe, and he's trying to get this pressure gauge thing right. So, Professor, do you think maybe he can't breathe? Yes, maybe what it's fucking guy's dying there, and he's like, yes, maybe what was in that pack is supplying him what would be oxygen to him. Fucking planet Earth's full of oxygen, but he actually says that. I think he means his equivalent of oxygen, but he doesn't say it like that though. And right, maybe we should help him then. Do you think? So they go over, they turn this little gauge, and like suddenly he can breathe, and he gets up and he puts his gun away, and then he sort of does like sort of little maneuvers with his hands, and they're going like, I think John Lawrence, the reporter's going like, do you want to eat? I don't know. Come back to ours for a coffee and a pancake, maple syrup. What's going on? And so, Professor, let's back up. Let's back up slowly. And they do, and they walk away, and he follows them, and he does go back to the Brock, and they begin with Dr. Mears, who's seen all this as well. Sneaky Dr. Mears. They say, like, well, they're trying to communicate with this guy. I know, folks. It's hardly the most dynamic of reviews, because there's not much to work with here. So just stick with me. But don't bother watching the film. They're in the Brock and they're talking, and it is very gothic looking, the structure and on the art direction and production design in it, because it wasn't from Edgar G. Ulmer. It's from Victor Fleming and Joan of Arc. They've just used it. And so this guy, he said, well, Mears, they say, well, maybe he uses mathematics as a way of communication. So let me work with him, right? So you could be onto something there. That could be what's his name? Oh, Mears, yeah, what's his first name? I wrote William Shallot, Dr. Mears, and then hyphen twat. That's what he is. As he will reveal in this sequence, the other two leave, and he's like, well, let's try to, because he wants to get the technology of this steel to make his millions and fortune, you know. So what he does, he knows about this sort of air regulator thing that X has got. So I think he's drawn him diagrams, and X is looking at these, and then he fucking pounces on him. This is a little fucking fella, and he was really innocent, seemingly at this stage, and he pounces on him, and he goes, I'll turn this off on you, you know, and I'm gonna ration this on you now because I want answers. Tell me everything. I want answers. Otherwise, you're getting on this back. He even calls him a goblin at one stage. He's like, "You come in, you little goblin." William Shallot he's a right bastard. As I called him there in my notes, a twat. He genuinely is. Like, God, you evil little shit. Now, the whole thing about this gas regulator, this air regulator, whatever the hell it is, there's a lot of controversy now and sort of rethinking of why, when X advances with his gun, well, it must be a gun, it doesn't seem to use it, but it's a gun, on the good professor and the good reporter, and then suddenly a lot of revisionist thinking is now that he was testing them. He did it on purpose to see if they were compassionate, if they were benign, if they'd help him, or if they just It's a bit of a gamble, I would say. But I think it's part of a confused screenplay. I think that idea may have actually been genuine, but it doesn't really work as well. It's not done that well. It's taking a hell of a gamble. Or maybe, he really doesn't, he can breathe, and it's all a big fucking joke, although that'll be disproved later on. Spoilers. And it's just so stupid. Why would you risk yourself? Because they might just go, ha ha ha, and then you fucking kill yourself. It just doesn't make any sense. But anyway, so now, what you get is Mears goes out to the other guys and I tried, I'm getting nowhere with him. Enid goes in there, and you don't see it. It's quite a good scene actually. She goes into the room, and obviously she sees that Mr. X is completely on the deck, supposedly dead, you think, and you hear a big shrieking scream. They all run up there. X is gone, and so is Enid. Where are they gone? Where'd you fucking think they've gone? You know, cue the next sequence of the movie where apparently we'll be told that people from the village have disappeared as well. Because you've got the constable there, Tommy, played by Roy Engel, with the beginnings of a Scottish accent, which then just completely, he forgets about it completely and just goes back into Californian, drawl. Cheers, y'all. Other people have gone missing. So what's happening? The film then sort of speeds up, but not into any action, just into more interaction. Like, John Lawrence will be down at the town and he said, well, yeah, more people have gone missing and this is the same thing that happened to the professor, blah, blah, this thing, it must have some kind of mind control over people, which is what it's got, folks. It's got, X has now, right, fuck you guys help me, but that guy's a twat to me, so screw you. I'm going to either get my ship sorted out, because has he crash landed? Because a bit of it did come off, Again, that's not made clear because we'll find out that he was there on purpose. Coming to that. So people from the village have been, with his mind control ray blaster thing from the ship, he is able to control them and make them work for him. So he's got Enid, he's also got various people from the town, and more will go missing as well. In one of the film's most frightening sequences, you get John Lawrence is the guy talking to Tommy, the Constable Tommy, about what's happening, and there's something out on the moors, and blah 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 blah. And then other townspeople will come in. Have you found my Craigie? My Craigie's gone missing. And I go, well, no. Other people have gone missing too. I'm kind of busy here talking shite with this American reporter. It's such crass garbage. But you see a sequence of John Lawrence, the reporter, gets on his bike, I think it's Enid's bike, and rides off into the moors. And there's two guys who are sitting either side of the path, the track, one behind a tree, one behind a little trench. And when he goes past, they leap out at him, but he manages to get away, get out of there. And they're running after him. You're like, what the hell's that about? A later scene, about 2-3 minutes afterwards, we'll have some guy walking down, again, the exact same ratio and scale and size of what you're looking at right now. We'll walk down a little back alley in the town, and these same two guys will pounce on him and drag him off. What's happening is X is controlling them to go and bring other workers. So he's got I was going to say an army, it's about 4 or 5. But this will include Dr. Mears as well. Yes, that nefarious Dr. Mears, with all his plans, all his super steel, and torture aliens, and whatever he's done in the past, which you never find out. So he's there as well, and they're digging trenches around this crashed spacecraft, and X is there, and Enid's there. So now the good folk of Barry Island are trying to come up with what do we do now? All the telephone lines have gone down. Oh no, X has done that quite clearly. So what are we going to do? So they go out to onto a cove or something, a cliff edge, and they set, I think, Morse code to a passing freighter. Call Scotland Yard. No, I'm not joking. That's what they do. Call Scotland Yard. Do you think they saw it? Oh, I don't even know. They went into the mist too quickly. What? What are you saying there? Are you Billy Connolly all of a sudden? The big yin, his birthday was yesterday. Billy, you are a champion, a superstar, a hero. A drink to you. The big yin, funniest man on the planet. Happy birthday. And but next thing you know, the Scotland Yard do arrive. And apparently, I think it's a boat plane. You don't see it. But however they've got there. And what I do like about this scene, if you do watch this film, you've got John Lawrence reporting, you've got Constable Tommy there, and you've got these two Scotland Yard guys come in, and John Lawrence mid-yaw is like telling them what's been happening, and this planet's coming in, and this guy did it, people got missing, and whatever. Well, you haven't got long. The planet's due here. And if well, I don't know why I'm giving them a Scottish accent. They're from. I know it says Scotland Yard in the title, but it's based in London, you know. They go, we've only got till midnight tonight before Planet X arrives, so we've got to do something now. Right. So we'll get some soldiers in. What soldiers? What soldiers are they? We'll get some British squaddies in with bazookas and Tommy guns. We're going to bring them in with all the weapons that we know from Americans, which the British didn't use. Because they're Americans. It's all filmed in America and it's all American. But the uniforms are correct when these guys do turn up. I'm rushing ahead here. But I kind of want to because I'm fucking sick of this already. Isn't it terrible? I really wanted to have such a good time in this movie and I didn't. I'm sorry, I just didn't. And so... But what I like about this sequence is that Constable Tommy is so in awe and reverence of Scotland Yard being in this little tiny little police station shack on Barry Island that he's just, there's sit down, gentlemen, sit down. And if you look at what's his name, Roy Engle as Constable Tommy, he's just watching these guys and he's just like reverence, and he's hanging everywhere that they say. And we should sit down, I'll tell you all about it. And John Lawrence reported pulls a chair out, not for them, but to sit down himself. But Tommy pulls a chair out and gets the inspector to sit down, and I like that. It's just a nice little character touch, which adds a lot more to this. Constable Tommy is in it quite a bit actually, and he's really annoying for most of what he does until that bit when I thought, oh god, no, I get that now. Oh, I like him. Oh, that's all right. That. Anyway, so look, but I'm gonna bring the army in and destroy it by midnight tonight. And he said, no, but there's people up there. They're working for him. You know, he's got mind control over them. So, and Enid's up there as well. And the love interest, which we've all forgotten about now. And he said, just give me an hour, and I'll get up there and I'll try and get him away. That's what he does. So he goes, and the army's arrived now, all, I think, 5 of them, with First World War fucking piss pots on their heads. It's awful, to be honest. And and they've got American Tommy guns and a bazooka, and it's just, fuck off. Thompson submachine guns. So, but John Lawrence legs it through the mist, climbs over all the polystyrene rocks, a bit of earth being just chucked over there, climbs over, finds Dr. Mears, William Shallett, and he says to him and they're just comatose, they're zombified, and he just says to him what's going on, what's happening? So they're zombified and they're under mind control by X. But he can still talk to him and order him what to do. Like with the Professor, because he realised when the Professor was completely just in a trance, Professor, come with me, and Professor does walk with him. So X's tricks don't really work that well either. So he says to him, what's going on? Why are you doing this? And here's where you find out what the fucking plot is. I know, you're waiting for this. Alien invasion movies. I kind of gave the game away at the start of this. X is a scout for that planet. That planet X, right, is dying. It's clearly been blown, like Moonbase Alpha, off its trajectory, and it's hurtling through space to imminent death. But everyone is dying on that planet. So they've been sent out to find another planet where they can colonise and live. So he's gone there in advance. But he's gone there and he's setting up his... Well, we've assumed it was a crashed spaceship, but maybe it isn't. You know, maybe it didn't come down too well because part of it went missing, remember? That's what they found. So it didn't come down with the best of landings. But it's still set up there as, it's going to be a relay station. It's a wireless radio beacon to inform the planet. Yeah, this one's okay. Okay, boys, come down here. They're okay. So now... we go back to when he confronts Professor Elliot and the reporter, and he pulls a gun on him, and then fucks around and like, I'm dying. See what they do. Now this is where the weirdness comes in, because what was that tactic again? Is he trying to find out whether mankind, humankind, are kind and compassionate, and are they the kind of people we can live with and cohabitate with, or are they nasty and we've got to conquer them? So it's cohabit or conquer. Is it one of the two? It's not made clear. It is not made clear at all. So it becomes paradoxical, really. I come down here to find out if you're going to be good, but and like we're all sorry for him. He got beaten up by Bill Charlotte, and then you think, oh, he's only kidnapped people because he wants to get away, and they've been nasty to him. But really, he's a spearhead for an invasion anyway. So do you see what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. There's no concrete sort of design to the story mechanics. I'm all for a bit of ambiguity in movies. Look at the end of the thing. I love mystery and like make up your own minds, but you have to have some connective tissue so you can form your own ideas. This goes one way, then goes another way. And there is no concrete, conclusive evidence for either. All you know categorically is that he is the spearhead of an invasion of Earth. So, ergo, not a good guy. But doesn't make sense of what's happened before with the interactions. So it's silly. It's silly. Anyway, John Lawrence will manage to, even though these guys are like mind controlled by X, still manages to intervene. Like, I want you to walk away now, just walk, because we've only got an hour before the military blows place up. So get out of here now. And then he'll go to the other workers who are all shoveling dirt, and just say to them like, walk with me, walk this way now. So this mind control thing from X is a bit shit, really, isn't it? It's okay until someone else, does the mind control thing. So all of a sudden, these poor guys are massively hypnotized, but they get away. But Enid manages to get out of there as well. I forgot about her, which is understandable because she doesn't do anything in the movie. She's in it at the beginning and she's in it towards the end. But once she goes missing, that's it. There's no real threat to her. But what happens is she'll get out and the alien will make a reappearance. And then our boy, John Lawrence, will end up fighting the alien, who's about that big, folks. About that big there. And with his goldfish bowl on his head. And we already know the Achilles heel. Fiddle around with the nozzle. And it's good night, Vienna. Vienna, mid-yaw, Ultravox. You see how these things all come together in the fullness of time. So John Lawrence will have a fight with this, and in a really, really bad and overly long, protracted moment, you've got like hand action, human hand, X hand, trying to get to the nozzle first, and bad editing as well, because you see X hit the floor in one moment, and then we cut again to the fight, and they're still standing up, and then you cut to X slowly falling over as his hair is being, or whatever he's got, is being taken away from him, and this fight's taking place, and John Lawrence will get Enid away. They'll get back to safety, but Dr. Mears, the nefarious Dr. Mears, who, whatever crimes he's done in the past, we have no idea, never get told. He runs back to try to, because he still wants to make his fortune from this, and but he goes back just in time for the alien to go, right, I'm up again, and then suddenly the bazooka goes off, and one hits it, boom, up it goes. Well, I say boom, up it goes. What happens is you see like an optical effect going in there of the projectile, the missile, and the X's spacecraft is sitting there on this little sort of jaunty angle, and then the frame cuts, and then it's gone, and a big superimposed puff of smoke. It's one of those effects, folks. Yeah, I know I'm not knocking the film for its very dated and limited effects, but it adds up with the whole stupidity, the whole story, just to get me to go, oh God, even that didn't really work. But, so it's been destroyed. You do see Dr. Mears, I think, because the troops are shooting at it as well. I think he gets shot first, and he does roll over that little hillock that the zombies have made, and you see blood down it coming from his mouth, which is an unusual shot, to be honest, for a film of this period, showing a bit of gore in the early 50s. Although, having said that, The Thing Under the Well did show a bit of gore as well. So what do I know? And then, so obviously, it's been diverted. It's blown this up, and because no radio broadcast has gone through to the Planet X, they will actually watch as Planet X. They'll be there, and you get a whoosh sort of effect, and sort of like the fake fronds and leaves go whoop like that. And Enid and John Lawrence are like huddled up against a polystyrene hillock, and obviously this planet's just, well, you do see it as well, go whoo like that, like a little white globe. Go, whoo! Well, thank God it didn't hit, because it didn't get the message. Now, having said that, don't think about this. X has to get in touch with his people to tell them this place could be colonized. The fucking planet is zooming towards the Earth, and at what point was he going to send the message? Because that planet was not going to suddenly go, put the brakes on. It's the fucking Death Star, is it? No, he can't slam the brakes on. It's going to hit the Earth. That was our one chance of colonization and living somewhere better, and we've just fucking destroyed it. Oh, by the way, destroyed ourselves as well in a big cataclysmic cosmic collision. I said that, and I've been drinking whiskey. It's ridiculous, folks. It's fucking ridiculous. But then you'll get the ending, and even this is stupid as well. You'll get John Lawrence, and this is when he puts the mid-yaw raincoat on, the khaki raincoat with the collars and the waistband and all that, with his rakish tash, and he's saying his goodbye to it, like, I'm going to, I've got to go back now. And he says, but your father said that you're coming out to California at some point. You're meant to think these two are going to be a love interest. You don't even get that payoff. You don't get that payoff at all. You say, your father said you're coming to California sometime. Oh yes, yeah, I'll be there in the summer or whatever. Oh, I'll look forward to seeing you. But what she says now as well, she goes, do you think he was bad, or do you think, he was a spear of an invasion? No, I think he was friendly. He was just trying to make friends. So again, what is the point? You have to have something there. You've gone in two different directions so far. X's actions have been ridiculous. I'll just booby trap myself. So I fall over in front of these two much bigger than me, possibly aggressive humanoids. Can destroy me. They might want to eat me. Planet X has had no time to study the Earth, because it's hurtling at fucking high speed, and they've sent off these emissaries. There's the other thing as well. They mentioned at the start of the film, John, you may have learned that there's been lots of sightings of unusual things in the sky. So there's obviously other things. These guys are probably all over the Earth. Why don't he say something like that? Like at the end of the thing, you got to keep watching the skies, keep looking, keep watching the skies. You could have had something like that, like there could have been, not that they knew that was coming, but you know what I mean? You could give like this, well, maybe he was friendly, maybe he wasn't. And remember, there's been many of these things in the sky. They could be all over the world right now. Just something to add a bit of edge to it. But you don't get the romantic payoff, and you don't get any payoff at all. Folks, The Man from Planet X has a sort of revered position in fans of vintage sci-fi, because it's pretty much the first official alien invasion movie. But it so doesn't work. Its story is really, really badly constructed, very badly written. I can't say badly acted. I don't mind the acting. The accents are all over the show, but I don't mind the acting in it at all. but it's just so stupidly handled. Plus points would be, although it's a double-edged sword, plus points would be the fog-bound sets and the Brock of this conical tower, very gothic, and the sort of dreamy, surreal-like style of it, which again is what William Cameron Menzies would do for Invaders of Mars in 1953, which is a film again which is loved and revered, and yet when you watch it, it is not that good. I do have a lot of affection for Invaders of Mars, but I think it's a badly flawed movie, even given its low budget aspirations and its great ideas. But its ideas, some of which are culled from this movie, of course. The thing over the hill. There's something happening over there, just over the hill. People go over and they become zombified. They're possessed by the Martian presence. So that is an exact sort of replication of what happens in this movie. You go over the moors to the flashing light, and you don't come back, and then you're working for the aliens. That's exactly the same sort of thing. Now, this film would also, I mean, even though watching it, I don't appreciate just its value, but its value is there. If you watch this movie, I guarantee you'll be thinking of two things: Doctor Who and his Tom Baker unit adventures, or even John Pertwee and his Doctor Who unit adventures, stuff on Earth, and it just things happening in sort of rural areas. Yeah, you get that. But far more prescient for its time would be Nigel Neal and Quatermass, and the Hammer movies of Quatermass and the BBC versions of Quatermass. Particularly Quatermass Experiment, landing back to Earth and like just things transforming. But particularly Quatermass 2, where an alien presence is on Earth and humans are being mind controlled and become zombies to work for the alien influence. Got that here. And what else? X the Unknown as well, which is not a Quatermass movie, but it basically is. It's a Hammer movie, and again X, Man from Planet X and X the Unknown. You can see the Man from Planet X. Well, how else would you write it? But X is always like yellow or red, kind of like whoosh, X. And but with Hammer, when they did X the Unknown, it was genuinely like because X significant movies, horror movies, we are celebrating the fact that we are a horror movie. And X the Unknown has something out on the moors, but it hasn't landed from outer space, it's come up from underneath, and it is a blob basically, but it's a fantastic movie, and that's where this is done perfectly well, with atmosphere, with set pieces, with suspense. This film has atmosphere. It loses out on suspense massively, I think, because even confrontations with with X himself, they're diluted by ridiculous conversation and just like, oh, do this and I do that, and then none of it really works, and you don't know what X is up to. And I can understand people going, well, but that's part of the mystery. You don't know what he's doing. Well, I wasn't afraid of him at all, ever, at any single point in this movie. I'm not afraid of what X is up to. He's just a little stupid fucking munchkin, and that's what he is. You don't even see him that much. For all these monster kids who say like, oh, I grew up with this. And no, to be honest, I get this, because we all grew up with certain movies and things frightened you as a kid, and they stay with you, and you've got that nostalgic value you put on them. Things that you were scared of, things that you love, and that you'll always carry that with you. So people that grew up with this movie and watched it every, week in, week out, and loved it when they were like 5 or 6, 7 years old, yeah, I get you. There is a degree. I can see where you're getting the idea that it's eerie. I can see that, but I'm not getting that vibe myself. I cut a lot of slack for these movies because I love them, and this I so wanted to love, and yet, as I said before, I'd seen it years ago, probably seen it a couple of times, but way back when I first got hold of it, a copy of it. And but I'd forgotten so much of it, and now I know why. Because so much of it is absolutely forgettable and irrelevant, and just namby-pamby, folks. The Man from Planet X. It ain't great. It ain't great, but it's got its place in history, in the annals of sci-fi genre history, and you can't take that away from it. There are photos of people at what looks like either a high school Halloween dance, or it could be a US Army base as well. I've seen these pictures, and someone is dressed up as, he's rather taller though, the Man from Planet X, and there's dancers around and all that, and there's drinks in the background, and it's clearly from probably a couple of years after the film's release, and they've done a mocked up costume. He's wearing flippers as well, and this doesn't make any sense. But the photos are around, you can check these things out. Joe Dante, The Howling. Oh, come on now. Gremlins, Joe Dante, one of the greatest low budget yet innovative, fantastic movie directors America's ever put out there. He did Looney Tunes Back in Action, and there's a sequence in Looney Tunes Back in Action where it's set at not Area 51 but Area 52, where several classic alien monsters will make a reappearance, and one of them is what? I know, I was going to tell them, don't ruin it for me. Yeah, as he said, yeah, it is the Man from Planet X. So it does have its place in sort of cinematic history in this, within the sci-fi genre. It is important, I suppose. But is it any good? That's the thing. And same year, as I said before, you would have The Day the Earth Stood Still, which is an absolute bona fide classic. I don't revere that film as much as many other people do, but I admire it and I do enjoy it. And I love Gort, I love Klaatu, but I just don't like the travelogues of Washington DC and and the whole platitudes and it's really we're good people really, But I do love the darker overtones to it, and Gort is fantastic. But the same year, just after this, Planet X, you get The Thing from Another World, which is perfection. Absolute perfection. I have reviewed it, I've covered it, talked about it a lot. That's the exact sort of thing that I love most of all. You see it. And again, there's ambiguity there, because they talk about, well, what if he didn't come here just to scout? What if he came here as like a part of an invasion? Well, they talk about that, and quite clearly, straight away, The Thing from Another World is genuinely aggressive. Okay, yeah. He's thrown out of his crashed flying saucer. He's incarcerated. He's then, rudely awoken with a heated blanket over his block of ice. He's shot at by a frightened man, and then goes on the rampage. And no one treats him with any respect, apart from Professor Carrington. Robert Cornthwaite. Fantastic. God, another hour I could spend on this right now, but which I won't do. But you can always say, oh well, yeah, he was attacked first, so he's just retaliating, and the military don't trust him at all. That's part of the theme, of course, that the military don't trust him, and the science brigade, half of them want to keep him alive and work on him and learn from him, and the other half are like, well, actually no, he's killing people. And the overall modus operandi of The Thing from Another World is that he's an aggressor. That is the point. And so you don't come away from that with any sort of ambiguity that, we could have let him go there. It's in there, but it's not enough to make you think, I did the wrong thing there. Should have let him live. No, you had to kill him. And of course, Scotty's warning to the world at the end, keep looking, keep watching the skies. That it is. The film leaves you with a totally implicit agenda that we're under attack and we've got to watch because we are on the defense now. Whereas this movie, Planet X, you're like, what the fuck? So in so doing of destroying X himself and his relay wireless station, which whatever he was going to tell them, who knows? We can mind control these people, but anyone that we don't mind control can control them as well. So that's fucked, isn't it? You know, and some are great, some aren't great. There could have been some lines and some dialogue that would have communicated this better had they had that idea. But I don't think the writers knew what the fuck they were doing. I genuinely do not think that he understood. They just wanted to put an alien out there. And, oh, it could be good, could be bad. Two writers, so two different ideas. Oh, screw it. Let's just have both our ideas in there and let the audience work it out. No one's going to see it anyway. But people did see it, and the film did go on to become a bit of a... It has got a cult following, and people do love this movie. But I'm just looking at it from... even though I'm a monster kid myself and a massive cult movie aficionado, I've got to say it as I see it, and this just doesn't work. It just does not work. And I'd love to be sitting there and going, this film's great. It's got such a dreamy atmosphere. It's almost like a fable, a fairy story. It's invaders from Mars. It's company of wolves on the Scottish moors. It's just, it's fairy tale. It's weird. It's eerie. It's spooky. It's ooky. And a really crazy alien. No, it tries to be all those things. There's definite, inroads made, but it achieves absolutely none of them apart from a slightly eerie feel to it. But beyond that, mate, no. By the way, all this sort of vintage sci-fi sound is from, this is Project Comstock from Frank Comstock and his orchestra. And it's all like, I think 50s and 60s eerie space sounds, but with an orchestra and with theremin and electronics. And it's wonderful. You can get hold of it. It's genuinely wonderful. And it seems to fit this movie quite a bit. There's a lot of films from the 50s which had ideas, tried to latch on to the whole sci-fi bandwagon, and yet fell off because the ideas were not clear-cut enough. There was not enough narrative thrust. As I said before, ambiguity can be great if used correctly. If you want to leave audiences to make up their own minds about certain outcomes and certain characters. But you cannot have a character who you allude to as being, he should be behind bars for what he did. Oh, I believe he said at the time. And then not say what it was. You can't have an alien that acts one way, threatening, and then is he testing them to see if they're compassionate or not? Because what if they hadn't been compassionate? Would he have killed them? Would he have sent a message off straight away? Like, yeah, they're all twats here. So just invade and we'll just conquer. Best way for it. How is letting them know that it's okay here? So all get in your ships and come here when the fucking planet is going to hit them anyway. And how does the planet veer away? How does the planet veer away just because they don't get the message and his ships gets destroyed? It doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. It's just a jumble of ideas when worlds collide, alien invasion, mind control. All these ideas are jostling in there, and yet none of them actually go to any conclusive finale. We don't know when it's all meant to gel. So anyway, yeah, I will show you now. Let's see if I can look at him. Oh, the ring light. Go that way. You can see his face there. This sort of immobile face. And there's Margaret Field. By the way, she does not look like that in the movie. She doesn't. Where they've given her like absolutely huge breastoids on that image. And a neck that's literally as thin as my little finger. but it's a great image. It's great artwork. The film is black and white. I should have said the film is black and white. But on that DVD, the sound quality is very good. It's very good. The image is it's great. It's grainy as hell, and the sort of matte paintings and the fog bound stuff will play havoc. It will. It makes it grainy, even grainier, you know. But I don't know. I've got no idea what else to say about this movie other than I wanted to love it, but I don't. I don't hate it, but it's just not very good. And it's not very good on a fundamental level. If you can't get your script right, no amount of what you do visual-wise, compensating for a massive low budget, is really gonna, boost it. Although I do like Constable Tommy. He is good. His reverence for the Scotland Yard detectives and inspector when they arrive, he's in the side of the frame, so you're probably paying attention to the inspector doing his big authoritative waffle, and you got the Yank who's just like, yeah, whatever, Scotland Yard, my ass. I'm gonna sit down, pull up a pew, and you got this other guy running around because he knows he's kind of subservient to them. And he's just, I want to be one of these guys, they're heroes. And you see it, he's really over-egging it. But I like it, because it's one of these guys in this movie is actually like, well, I've got this character, and I'm gonna run with this, and I'm gonna play with it, I'm gonna make it more emphatic. And he does his bit. What happened to him? Can't remember. Nothing, probably, nothing. In the big nothing conclusion. Oh, I don't know, mate. Other than that, music in the film is by Charles Koff. It begins the sort of onslaught of sci-fi music in the 50s, but you'd also have the likes of great composers like Dmitri Tiomkin for the Thing from the Wild. You'd have Bernard Herrmann for the Day the Earth Was Still, both using the theremin, and you'd have many other like Fred Steiner, Stern, Henry Mancini, Elmer Bernstein would all cut their teeth in horror movies and sci-fi movies of this era with better stuff, So, the man from Planet X. Canal. Exactly. Wah, wah, wah. Oh no, if you guys are fans of it, then fine. And I don't like dissing movies at all, especially vintage movies, because I pick them for reasons, and I always revere older movies, but I'm afraid I can't really give any emphatic thumbs up to this. I admire some, but I'm annoyed and vexed by most of it. Well, there you are, folks. That video now is longer than the movie itself, and I've probably given it more attention than anybody else has done for a film that no one really cares about, and yet it's been mentioned to me quite a lot lately, and I've seen it on forums. So I think a lot of these films come around again and again, and if one person mentions it on a forum and people read that forum, then they're going to start talking about it, and it spreads to other things, and you get dialogue. So that's why films come back again and again and again. Even really obscure movies like this, and yet it clearly isn't that obscure, because it certainly paved the way for the likes of Invaders from Mars. And I will stand here. Well, I'm going to sit here because I can't stand at the moment. Because I've suddenly got up now, your back and just go, argh! I'm sitting on a wooden chair as well. That's not a good idea, is it? With no cushion on it. So I think it's got its place, certainly, and it has proved to be influential in some ways. But if you had the likes of The Day the Earth Was Still coming out the same year, and The Thing from the Wild the same year, which are not connected at all to this movie, but again, Roswell and the whole flying saucer flash, which was the huge hype around flying saucers at that time, was massive. They were seen everywhere. It was all over American tabloids, all over it. And so obviously Earth versus the flying saucers. You get all of these things like would happen. These movies would come out. So aliens were here. So these other films, these bigger ones, these more prestige movies, were going to happen regardless. This film did not make those happen. But I can see the likes of Invaders from Mars going, hang on a minute, there's that shitty little fucking, that one set in the Scottish Broch. Let's do that in the Misty Moors. And it's, it's people go over the hill, they don't come back, they're not the same, they're zombified. What's the alien's real purpose? Bring the army in. You can see how that worked, but they made it better. Although Invaders from Mars is still a badly flawed film, I feel. Sadly, Tobe Hooper's remake of Invaders from Mars, which I have talked about a lot before, was a great chance to really make that film really work. He went family friendly, but the effects were great. But the film fell apart. It's badly disjointed. The narrative is gone. His Golden Globus Cannon Films contract was coming to an end, and Tobe Hooper just like, fucking get the film out there. 3 different soundtracks, all of which I've got for that movie, all of which are great, by the way. But the film itself, it's one I do watch it occasionally because the build-up's great, and some other scenes are great, but it loses. There's a big chunk missing from that movie, and you feel it. The original movie, William Cameron Menzies, I love the look of the aliens, the Martians. I like, the big beastie, the big one in charge. I like the idea. But it's done in such a cute, cozy, horrible, twee sort of paper mache sort of manner that, again, I can't really love it as much as other people do. Folks, I'm always slavish about the films that I love and enjoy and totally admire and revere and cherish, as you well know. But I'm equally as, I hope you can tell that I want to love this film as well as Invaders from Mars. I want to love these films, and I feel like I should do. But if I've got to work hard to love something, then that's wrong, isn't it? It is what it is, and if you love it, that's great, and good luck to you. And long may Man from Planet X continue and be looked upon by other people in future generations to work out how that got into, how it may have started quite a bit of a catalyst of movies, and be one of the first to do so, because it clearly is. I mentioned Algon, and I mentioned whatever that Messenger movie is from Mars. But they weren't really proper invasion movies. This can be termed as such because no matter what see, you've got 2 versions, haven't you? Or was he trying to be friendly, or was he trying to spearhead an invasion? Either way, they were coming. The idea was for them to come to Earth, whether you're going to conquer and take over or cohabit. We don't know, because pesky Dr. Mears fucked it all up, didn't he? What a bastard. Just looking at my notes. Nope. I don't think there's anything else to mention. So we're done. We're done here. And sadly, I'm almost done there as well. Oh, God, no. Folks, I did a big chat track watch along party for Mad Max 2, and it worked. It didn't get blocked. So there's going to be another one in the next day or so. And it's going to be a doozy. It's going to be Evil Dead 2. God, we're going to have a blast with that. Anyway, folks, I have been over Shabby Kilt-Man. Please keep it Celtic, keep it Celtic. And in this meantime, and ever extraterrestrial watching the skies in between time, just be yourselves. And I'm going to catch you all through a telescope. So try to keep your hurtling planets, a bit more in balance. And if you want to make friends, just say, we come in peace. hang on, didn't that motherfucker say that as well? And what happened then? We lost Jack Nicholson as president.